Since its debut on the small screen, Peaky Blinders has made waves in the entertainment industry. The iconic character of Thomas Shelby, portrayed by Cillian Murphy, continues to be talked about. Becoming Thomas Shelby isn't just about copying his distinctive hairstyle or wearing vintage three-piece suits. It's about delving deeper into the essence of a character that has become deeply ingrained in the audience's psyche. Thomas Shelby isn't just a feared gang leader, he's a complex, intelligent, and calculated individual. He's someone who combines business acumen with brutality that can make his enemies face their worst nightmares while still maintaining affection for his family and close associates. First and foremost, to take the first step towards being Thomas Shelby, we must understand his tragic background and his struggles through the horrors of World War I. Shelby is a war veteran who brings home deep emotional scars, which influence every decision he makes. It forges his vision and mental resilience, marking the beginning of his tendency towards bold and dangerous actions. Thomas Shelby's uniqueness also lies in his ability to adapt and take control in difficult situations, using wit and aggression to achieve his goals. There's finesse in his ruthlessness, strategy in every move, and there's always a grand plan being executed behind the dark curtains. To embody the aura of Thomas Shelby, one must go beyond boundaries while still rooted in the principles that make this character unbeatable. It's not a journey for those seeking an easy or quick path. It's a path for individuals willing to face uncertainty with intelligence, refine their courage through experience, and, most importantly, never lose grip on harsh reality. As we delve into the process of becoming Thomas Shelby, we'll focus on elements like strong leadership, high social skills, and a resilient mindset ready to face challenges. It's not just a role to be played, it's a full transformation that touches every aspect of existence. Get ready to enter a gray world that requires more than just appearances to survive. Get ready to enter the mind of Thomas Shelby. What is Peaky Blinders? When we delve into the world of Peaky Blinders, we're not just thrown into the post-World War I street brutality of Birmingham, but also plunged into a narrative labyrinth that blends historical facts with cinematic fiction. This series, which found its stage on Netflix and BBC, has spread its wings into a global phenomenon since its debut in 2013. Narratively, Peaky Blinders itself is a masterpiece woven by Stephen Knight, who successfully created a canvas of complex characters against the backdrop of 1920s England. At the heart of the story is the Shelby family, a criminal group suspected of taking their name from the practice of sewing razor blades into the peaks of their caps, presenting a visually intimidating identity. But is Peaky Blinders just about costume grandeur and violent drama? Certainly not. Behind every bloody incident and every crease on the extraordinary face of Thomas Shelby, played by the remarkable Cillian Murphy, lies a story of ambition, power, and class struggle. It's a tale of circumstances transcending criminal thoughts and attempting to reach bigger dreams. Political power, social status, and efforts to gain legitimacy in a society fragmented by war and poverty. Set against the backdrop of Birmingham, Peaky Blinders not only presents stylish gangsters but also delivers historical resonance. Carefully, the series transports viewers to a time when the city's heavy industry was at its peak, and issues like post-war trauma, women in the suffragette era, and ideological turmoil between rationalists, communists, and fascists were brewing. The critical aspect of Peaky Blinders lies in the portrayal of characters that aren't black and white. The Shelby brothers, with all their violence, are presented as anti-heroes. They're not just products of their time, they are damaged survivors who seek to shape their own era with their rules. This creates a moral paradox that keeps the audience questioning, should we root for them? The fiction in Peaky Blinders may exaggerate reality, but its charm and influence are inevitable. It reflects how the stories we tell can influence our perception of history. While there may be more myths than historical truths, it's undeniable that Peaky Blinders has introduced thousands of people to a piece of history that may have been unknown to them before. Peaky Blinders, through its thrilling synopsis and nuanced characters, serves as a reminder that behind every city legend lies a more complex truth. It's not just history retold, it's an immersive experience that paints the joys and sorrows, victories and tragedies of human life on personal and political scales that inevitably collide. 1. Seizing unexpected opportunities. Placing himself in a world of intrigue and crime, Shelby took over his family's illegal betting business and turned it into an empire. This is a testament to his ability to identify opportunities in every situation, no matter how risky. Ironically, the turmoil and chaos resulting from his post-war background provided fertile ground for Shelby to sow and reap his success. What makes Shelby so intriguing and worthy of observation is how he exploits these opportunities. His tough yet highly calculated character shows that success often stems from the ability to coldly assess every option, read opponents and allies with equal precision, and move with certainty, even when the move is often on morally gray grounds. One of Thomas Shelby's most iconic moments in seizing opportunities occurred when he faced a situation that could destroy all the struggles he had built. With cunning and almost reckless bravery, he executed a plan that not only saved his business from ruin, but also solidified his position as a nimble player in the treacherous world of politics. This is Thomas Shelby in all his captivating contradictions: a sharp thinker, a cunning strategist, and a fearless businessman who plays every card he has without hesitation. Yet he is also a human who suffers, his brutal past casting a grim shadow over his success. This video only scratches the surface of Shelby's greatness in seizing unexpected opportunities. However, this general overview is enough to explain why he is a figure worth noting, not only as a pop culture icon, but also as a case study in his agility in a risky world. Shelby is proof that success often requires more than just seizing the opportunities that come, but creating those opportunities themselves. The screen may have limited the exploration of the depth of Thomas Shelby's character, but through the texture of the story and conflicts presented, he becomes a symbol of how unexpected opportunities, when managed wisely and bravely, can pave the way for extraordinary fortune. Shelby not only provides entertainment, but also teaches us about the power of adaptation and courage in an uncertain world. 2. Patience and planning. Thomas Shelby, the charismatic protagonist of the British television series Peaky Blinders, has become a cultural icon, with his intelligence and composure often outshining his opponents. With his planned and patient ways, he reflects the importance of long-term thinking in business and personal life. Shelby's resilience represents high emotional intelligence, evident in his resistance against challenges that almost destroyed him. In patient maneuvers, he always maintains a perfect poker face, resisting the urge to respond quickly and emotionally. This principle reflects game theory. Often in conflict, long-term victory comes not from quick and aggressive moves, but from careful consideration. Shelby's method in expanding his business reflects careful architecture. He never rushes into business transactions, choosing to prepare in detail and consider every variable. This teaches us the value of due diligence and in-depth risk analysis. In Peaky Blinders, Shelby proves that the best results are sometimes achieved by refraining from impulsive decisions. Avoiding quick decisions driven by emotions allows him to play a bigger game, explore deeper alternatives, and ultimately achieve more profitable results. Shelby's composure shows a fundamental understanding of power politics. He prepares the ground before taking action, consolidating power first and only acting when the time is right. It's not just about strength, but also about timing. Using patience as a psychological technique is an art that Shelby masters, creating uncertainty among his opponents. By remaining patient, he often makes opponents analyze themselves to the point of severity, creating mistakes that he can then exploit. Thomas Shelby, with his patient and planned approach, offers invaluable lessons in management, leadership, and life strategy. His legendary character is a case study on how resilience and careful strategy, more than direct courage or strength, can lead to elegant domination in even the most challenging arenas. Shelby teaches us that indeed, in calmness there is strength, and in planning lies the path to victory. 3. Pursuing what is desired. Shelby, portrayed by actor Cillian Murphy, teaches us that destiny is not just something accepted but something pursued with courage. Over 5 captivating seasons, we witness how this former soldier leverages his dark background to build an unshakable business empire. From horse racing to whiskey distilling, his story, Shelby never blindly pursues his desires. He always devises careful strategies, combining street smarts with tactical knowledge learned on the battlefield. This is a lesson for us that desire alone without careful planning will only be a daytime dream. One of Shelby's greatest strengths is his ability to leverage the power around him, including alliances with influential figures and even his enemies. He understands clearly that in the game of power, there is no room for doubt, and this requires constant evaluation and utilization of available resources. Shelby also realizes that every action has consequences. This tireless pursuit often demands a high personal price, from loneliness to the psychological disturbances of post-war trauma he suffers. However, he never allows these obstacles to weaken his resolve. He teaches us that the courage to risk everything for our desires, if supported by mature strategy and the necessity to adapt, can bring us much closer to our goals. 4. Trusting intuition. Thomas's intuition is not without foundation. His background as a war veteran and head of the Shelby family gives him a sharp insight into human nature and power dynamics. In a harsh and often dangerous environment, decisions must be made quickly, and that's where Shelby's intuition comes in. Shelby's experience on the front line of war gives him a prime survival instinct. He learns to read situations, anticipate enemy actions, and most importantly, recognize when to act. Intuition in business, as in war, can be the difference between failure and success. Thomas's intuition also manifests in the ability to sift through information, seeing what is real and what is just deception. He discards irrelevant things and focuses on the essential, often oriented towards the untold narrative, read through posture, eye contact, or tense silence. With his work, the stakes are always high. Shelby is no stranger to risk, and his willingness to act on instinct is evidence of his trust in that intuition. He understands that intuition is a balance between rational analysis and emotional ambition, allowing him to make bold moves that often seem counterintuitive. But let's not forget, Shelby also shows a healthy skepticism towards his own intuition. He tests and questions, using critical internal dialogue to weigh every decision. This is important because in Shelby's world, mistakes can be fatal. An important lesson from Thomas Shelby is that intuition can be learned and honed. He wasn't born with this ability. Rather, it was carved by experience and a sharp awareness of his surrounding environment. The more he relies on intuition, the sharper he reads the situation. Shelby combines intuition with careful planning. Every move seems impulsive, but sometimes it's the result of thorough consideration, showing that even the most honed intuition still needs to be balanced with mature strategy. Thomas Shelby is a monument to the power of intuition in a world full of uncertainty. His intuition is not just a weapon but also a protector, a guide, and a compass. He shows that in business, as in life, listening to the faint whispers rather than the surrounding clamor often leads to the most fruitful decisions. Thomas Shelby's intuition, honed in the fires of war and distilled in strategic calmness, is proof that trusting intuition is part of the art of leadership. Part 5. Not dwelling on the past. As the leader of the Peaky Blinders, Thomas not only shoulders the responsibility of his family but also frees himself from the traumatic shadows of war wounds that seem to pull him back into the abyss of despair. Boldly, Thomas makes a decisive decision. His past will not dictate his future. This attitude becomes the foundation for every business and personal decision, as if he were a skilled sculptor carving fate from an unformed block of marble. This character is imbued with the philosophy that every day is a fresh page. With the sharpness of the famous Camberwell razor, Thomas dissects problems with calmness. There is no room for doubt or regret, only space for planning and the next move. Every sharp gaze reflects his fiery desire not to be defeated by the shadows that once enveloped him. In the business field, Thomas demonstrates that his ability to see opportunities in the future and forget past defeats is a strength that keeps him on the path to success. He is not bound by failure but learns from it, making it a weapon in the cold-blooded competition on the streets of Birmingham and in the corridors of power. Criticism can be leveled at his methods, which sometimes exceed ethical boundaries, yet it cannot be denied that Thomas Shelby is a visionary. He does not look back. His gaze is focused on the dreams and aspirations he wants to achieve. For him, the past is only a harsh teacher whose lessons will be used to conquer the future. Through Thomas Shelby, we are invited to reflect on the importance of accepting our past. The lessons and scars behind shape our character but should not be chains that prevent us from reaching our dreams. Though fiction, Thomas Shelby inspires the idea that we, as humans, have the power to redefine ourselves at any time, unshackled by the chains that once bound us. In the real lessons of life, Thomas Shelby urges us all not to drown in regret but to rise with the courage to face tomorrow. The past cannot be changed, but the future is a canvas waiting to be colored with smart choices and unwavering determination. Like Thomas Shelby, we are required to stride with our heads held high, cast off the chains of the past, and seize our destiny with both hands. 6. Prioritizing family. Beyond the brutality of the criminal strategies he designs, the divided heart of Shelby between business and blood, family, is the essence of his epic journey. The Shelby family is not just the recipients of an illegal business legacy. They are the axis to which Thomas returns when storms rage. Despite being on the front lines of relentless battles against enemies and competitors, he still prioritizes his family. In the dark post-war canvas of Birmingham, Shelby risks his life to protect those who share his name and blood. The social critique implied through the portrayal of the Shelby family shows how post-war life pushes humans to the moral edge to survive. For family becomes Thomas's mantra, echoing an unspoken commitment to elevate the Shelby clan to the pinnacle of success, or at least keep them away from the brink of destruction. In each season of Peaky Blinders, Thomas is shown to struggle against his own internal conflicts. On one side, he desires business expansion for family security. On the other, he strives to keep his loved ones within a safe circle. Behind his tough exterior, it's clear that his decisions are often based on a desire to create a legacy for his children and future Shelby generations. Paradoxes arise as we witness Thomas navigate the dilemmas brought about by his role as a leader. The desire to separate his family from the ruthless world, while also heavily relying on them to run the illegal business that forms the foundation of his power. This highlights one intriguing aspect of his character. Despite the perilous path he treads, the safety of his family is always placed above power. Using family as both reason and tool sometimes leads to tragic consequences, highlighting the complexity of the relationship between Thomas and his siblings, built on love and conflict, responsibility and rejection, strength and vulnerability. Without family, Thomas could perhaps be a more unbridled leader, but he would lose the core of his existence. The tragic closures of some seasons emphasize that Thomas, despite all the intrigue and violence he faces, continues to strive to save and elevate his family's status. That's why Thomas Shelby, with all his flaws and brilliance, remains a complex and captivating patron in the modern crime narrative. Through Peaky Blinders, the series writer and creator Stephen Knight succeeds in making Thomas Shelby a deep character study of how one can prioritize family amidst chaos, and teaches us that behind crime and violence, sometimes there is a deep spirit of protection. 7. Swimming against the people-pleasing tide. In an increasingly connected world, where social acceptance is often measured through likes and shares, Shelby teaches us one important principle. Resilience begins when we stop being people-pleasers. Critics might label Shelby as cold and unapproachable, but one thing that cannot be overlooked is his courage to uphold his values and principles. It's not easy to resist conforming in a society that demands conformity, but Shelby's character refuses to be engulfed by the expectations and desires of others. Shelby uses his intelligence for sharp analysis of the situations he faces. He knows when to compromise and when to stand firm on his principles. This is an embodiment of not being a people-pleaser, recognizing and prioritizing what you deem right and important. Thomas, amidst intrigues and power struggles, provides a lesson on the importance of authenticity. He doesn't change his decisions to gain approval, but still values loyalty and trust. This is an informative approach for all of us, where it's easy to succumb to social pressure that disregards our personal values for acceptance. In seeking success, are we going to tread the path to please everyone, or are we going to pursue our own visions? Thomas Shelby answers this unequivocally. The fictional history built around this character awakens awareness that being oneself might not always please everyone, but it will lead to a deeper self-satisfaction. Contrary to the rapidly growing populism trend, he reminds us that true honor and leadership come from the courage to follow our personal moral compass, not the majority's tide. Shelby, with all his flaws and hardness, shows that true character strength is not about how many people we can please, but about how we endure in the storm and remain intact as individuals of integrity. 8. Forging one's own path to success. The fictional world often presents characters etched in memory because of their struggles and achievements. One of them is Thomas Shelby, the central figure in the series Peaky Blinders, who epitomizes creating success through a unique path. Born into a humble gypsy family, Thomas Shelby carved milestones of success in unconventional ways. He didn't follow the available paths but created his own path, often filled with risks and intrigues. Thomas Shelby's success didn't come easily. He had to struggle, face business rivals, political opponents, and challenges within his own family. Yet, Tommy, as he is often called, never faltered. He relied on intelligence, sharp intuition, and not infrequently physical strength to navigate the harsh criminal world. One of Thomas Shelby's strengths is his ability to see opportunities in difficulties. He didn't just react to the rapidly changing business environment. He sought to exploit it for his and the Shelby family's benefit. An example is how he capitalized on the opportunities arising from post-war chaos to create his own business empire, from horse betting to liquor distribution. Thomas also never hesitated to play dirty when necessary. This is not just about physicality, but also about making decisions that may be deemed unethical by social standards. However, his courage in making these decisions often yielded results that strengthened his position. The criticism side of Thomas Shelby's story is his emphasis on recognizing and placing personal values in every decision. He opposes existing social norms and chooses a path he deems right, even if it differs from others. In terms of informativeness, Thomas's story explains to us that success often requires a unique perspective and the courage to achieve what others have not. He represents a picture of someone willing to take risks, learn from failures, and continue moving forward tirelessly. Perhaps the most important message from Thomas Shelby's journey is that within every individual lies the power to create their own path to success, as long as they are brave enough to step beyond existing boundaries, while still maintaining a strong moral code as a guide. Thomas Shelby, with all his flaws and strengths, is a depiction of an anti-hero who not only survives but thrives in a way only he can. Dressing sharp. For Thomas, dressing sharp wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was a statement of status, ambition, and power. With every sharp crease in his trousers, every carefully chosen belt, and every meticulously calculated seam, Thomas brought a refined decisiveness to a world rife with chaos and uncertainty. His appearance often manifested in thick wool coats, three-piece suits with club collar shirts, and either a bow tie or a sleek tie, not only shielded against the cold English weather, but also marked the boundary between himself and the outside world. Shelby's impeccably tailored appearance, complete with a center-parted haircut and a flat cap adorned with a razor blade, the emblem of the Peaky Blinders, didn't escape scrutiny for a moment. It was a costume that forged a connection between personal identity and professional persona. As a gang leader, Thomas understood the correlation between appearance and perception. He weaponized the stigma attached to dress codes, arming himself with a strong image to intimidate rivals and attract alliances. However, Thomas Shelby was more than just his appearance. His sense of style was another dimension of his strategic sophistication. Like a chess piece moving silently but with deadly accuracy, every element of his attire was a tactical maneuver, ensuring social conquest and business success. The silver evening gown, round sunglasses, and the charm of a pocket watch echoed respect for tradition with an inevitable touch of innovation. Shelby's sharp attire was also an embodiment of self-transformation, from the family horse stable to an entrepreneur with international influence. Whether in his dialogue or in his chilling silence, Thomas's clothing spoke volumes about self-control and shrewd judgment, warning that behind his fiery gaze lay ambitions that wouldn't be dimmed by the dust of Birmingham's streets. In a contemporary context, Thomas Shelby's style offers inspiration for modern men to achieve perfection in appearance while reminding them of the importance of consistency and self-awareness. We may not live among factories and street gangs, but the message conveyed by Shelby, that character strength can be reinforced and highlighted through our clothing choices, remains relevant. Thomas Shelby, with all his intrigues and struggles, remains an iconic figure of style, teaching us that clothing is not just a shield for the body, but an armor for the soul that weaves the story of each individual. And for Shelby, his story is written not only through warfare and politics, but also through every choice of fabric that wraps his courage and intelligence. 10. Mastering body language. Thomas, displaying power without uttering a word, facial expressions, body posture, and even silence all become powerful communication tools. Shelby's body language is a prominent form of non-verbal communication, often more pronounced than the words themselves. The camera frequently highlights his intense gaze, a sharp look that often redeems the emptiness of words, drawing viewers into the depth of this unwavering character. Shelby walks with purpose, each step exuding confidence and control. His upright figure and controlled hands affirm authority, a silent warning to friends and foes alike that he is not to be underestimated. Thomas Shelby uses touch, a firm handshake, or a tap on the shoulder as a tool to establish or reduce distance, while often maintaining enough personal space to preserve mystery and dominance. In interrogation rooms or negotiations, this distance becomes a tactic to reinforce his psychological control over the situation. In this brutal and unforgiving world, Shelby rarely lets emotions dominate his body language. Even in anger or despair, his facial expressions remain calm and controlled, a tactic to confuse and dominate his opponents. Interestingly, Shelby's body language not only governs his interactions with other individuals, but also how he leads the Peaky Blinders. His calculated movements send unspoken signals to his subordinates, often resulting in perfectly coordinated group actions. In the hands of Thomas Shelby, body language is not just a reflection of physiological responses, but a strategic weapon in the harsh business world and power struggles of the streets. His case study sheds light on the importance of mastering non-verbal communication as a form of expression and influence as powerful as the words we choose. Characters like Thomas Shelby teach us that body language is not just a complement in daily interactions, but also a tool that can be used to assert dominance, lead with silent strength, and influence others in real life or fictional scenarios. By understanding this art, we acknowledge that effective communication sometimes goes beyond the verbal, creating indelible impressions and immeasurable impacts. 11. Using state-breaking questions to surprise and dominate amidst the industrial smoke of Birmingham and the family authority encapsulated in the intrigues of the Peaky Blinders, emerges a figure known not only for his strategic intelligence but also for his skill in controlling the atmosphere through state-breaking questions. Thomas Shelby, the leader of the Peaky Blinders gang, uses dialogue as a sharp and effective tool. Not just conversation starters, Shelby's questions often go beyond seeking answers. He uses them to change the direction of thought, confuse, or even intimidate his interlocutors. A classic example might be his often thunderous question, "What is it that you truly desire?" Such questions penetrate the layers of social facade and lead to the core of the issue, leaving his conversational partners momentarily silent, reflective, or even intimidated. Shelby uses questions not only as conversation openers, but when he senses something hidden in the flow of the ongoing dialogue. Timing is everything, and Shelby uses timing to surprise and corner. Shelby often poses his questions in a calm yet firm tone. This demonstrates confidence and authority, leaving a significant impact on the psychology of his conversational partners. Though his questions may seem oppressive, there is an impression that Shelby is open to all sorts of answers. This is not just a tactic in negotiation, but also in gaining information he genuinely wants to know. Behind his piercing gaze, Shelby also shows sensitivity to his interlocutors. He leverages human insight to ask questions that touch on their deepest needs or desires. Thomas Shelby's establishment of dominance is not just physical but intellectual and emotional. With state-breaking questions, Shelby seems to set the stage where he is the main director. Shelby exploits the weaknesses and concerns of his conversational partners to uncover information or assert dominance, sometimes even before his conversational partners realize what's happening. He puts his conversational partners in a defensive position while leading them to give the responses Shelby wants. This is a subtle yet powerful art of negotiation and influence. The lesson to be learned from the character of Thomas Shelby regarding the use of state-breaking questions is that words can be the deadliest tool in our arsenal, especially when used correctly. This reminds us that in communication, it's not just what we say, but how and when we say it. Through his genius in communication, Shelby shows that sometimes the right question at the right time can be more powerful than a direct command. This is a rhetorical art whose mastery can provide an advantage in various situations, whether in conflict, negotiation, or everyday life. 12. Implementing the gain and lose method. Through dark cinematography and sharp dialogue, Shelby reveals a reality that often feels bitter, that in the gamble for power, losses are merely temporary steps towards conquest. In Chesterfield, Shelby's journey to the top is not without its falls. He comments calmly, "Victory does not belong to those who fear loss." This philosophy is not just rhetoric, it is the essence of Shelby's life strategy. Shelby masters the art of strategic retreat. For example, temporary concessions to Billy Kimber demonstrate careful judgment, a loss for long-term gain by solidifying alliances and building strength. Ironically, these sacrifices often yield unexpected benefits. On a more personal scale, Shelby employs this method in his relationships, like when he pretends to surrender to affection for Esme, only to secure an alliance with the Lee family, an emotional giveaway that is essentially a political investment. However, the gain and lose approach is not without psychological risks. Techniques like these blur the lines between pragmatism and self-loss. When Shelby rearranges the chessboard of his life, his human side, tied to family, love, and hope, becomes his stake. So, when we assess Shelby's wealth and success, the question arises, how much of Thomas remains amidst the pile of achievements? Shelby's story teaches us about the duality of the gain and lose method. It reminds us of the value of evaluating losses at every turn. Yet, it also shows how often people only assess the end result without considering what was lost in the process. Thomas Shelby, with all his complexities, becomes a symbol for those who dare to face losses, not just to reap profits, but to shape their destiny as they see fit. His attitude teaches viewers the importance of courage to let go of something for something more valuable, in stability, in family, and in power. In his final turn, Thomas Shelby reflects this gain and lose paradigm more like chess than gambling, where every defeat is part of a larger strategy. His story not only captivates audiences with the tension and courage of his character, but also provokes thoughts about the essence of sacrifice and payment on the journey to success. 13. Principle of brutal honesty. One aspect of his character stands out sharply like a razor blade hidden in his hat, his unwillingness to lie. Shelby may trade in illegal whiskey and horse betting, but when it comes to his words, he chooses pearls of raw and blunt truth. For Thomas, lying is a burden he doesn't want in this deceitful world. This doesn't mean that Thomas is free from manipulation. On the contrary, he is a master at reading situations and people, often using honesty as a weapon. His honesty, though brutal, is a complex web of larger strategies. He doesn't deceive with words, but with silence and omission. On the stage of Peaky Blinders, Thomas may seem like a figure who lacks empathy, yet there's more value in his honesty. Honesty becomes a rare commodity, a weapon that can be trusted amidst the proliferation of cunning rulers and slippery crooks. It's no wonder that his words, though rough, are often accepted as a sign of loyalty and trust. But avoiding lies also has its side effects. Often Thomas clashes with those who want to hear softer, smoother words. The harshness of his honesty sows seeds of conflict in his personal relationships and in business. This is the anti-hero's dilemma: how to maintain integrity when the world demands pretense. Shelby faces it with his head held high, looking his conversational opponent straight in the eye, giving them neither more nor less than what he believes to be reality. In the economy of words, he is the monopolist of honesty who holds the grip. Let's adjust our lens and see this not as a flaw, but as a focus of clarity in a foggy world. Thomas Shelby, with all his faults and brutality, offers a principle. In victory or defeat, in love or war, your words are the representation of your most authentic self. In lies, he sees a cowardice he cannot accept. Shelby, despite being immersed in the world of crime and violence, still holds on to the value of honesty that perhaps we all need to reflect on, amidst an era where truth is often distorted. Thomas Shelby is not a hero in the traditional sense, but perhaps he is a figure who reminds us that sometimes unavoidable honesty is what separates humans from the masks we wear, in an effort to survive in the war of our everyday lives. 14. Making deals with the enemy. Shelby, not just an anti-hero who takes us through the epic of a crime family, he is a maestro in the riskiest art of negotiation, making deals with enemies. Shelby may seem unreadable, but deep analysis reveals how he transforms the negotiating table. With a firm heart and bold strategy, Thomas faces his enemies, not just with violence, but also with offers they cannot refuse. This isn't just conquest through bullets and knives, it's psychological warfare. Thomas doesn't just use intelligence and brutality, but also sharp emotional intelligence to understand and manipulate his enemies. By observing their weaknesses and ambitions, Shelby creates agreements by promising what they want or by instilling their greatest fears. Every deal with the enemy is a step on the edge of the abyss, and Shelby is a skilled dancer on it. In a changing world, he takes calculated risks, showing that the courage to face the unexpected is an integral part of his success. At every step, Thomas evaluates risk and reward carefully. Thomas Shelby doesn't just survive in a cruel world, he thrives. Every deal is a piece of his ever-evolving business puzzle, each one a step towards bigger dreams. From gambling and alcohol to political control, there is no arena he cannot conquer. The lesson from Thomas Shelby for today's leaders: never be afraid to negotiate with rivals. See them as pawns in your grand strategy. Use intelligence, intuition, and sometimes inexplicable charisma to shape the outcomes you desire. As the ruler of the Peaky Blinders, Thomas Shelby teaches us about the importance of adaptation, courage, and cunning in facing enemies. In achieving domination, he shows that true power lies in the ability to think clearly amidst chaos, to make decisive decisions when needed, and to always maintain a vision that will lead us from the darkness of Birmingham's alleys to the light of prosperity and power. 15. Manifestation of unyielding tenacity, Thomas Shelby. He is the epitome of unstoppable perseverance, a marker of an era when forgiveness is a word that has no place in the vocabulary of success. Shelby's story is not preserved to teach obedience or humility. Instead, it provides lessons on seizing destiny with both hands, claws extended, ready for any challenge. Without begging for permission, he breaches through social and economic barriers that seek to shackle him in the chains of limitations. Success for Thomas Shelby is not a result, but an endless journey through smoke, bullets, and choking political interests. He sacrifices much blood, tears, and personal happiness to forge loyalty, not out of obedience, but out of respect earned through courage and intelligence. His journey invites both criticism and admiration in equal measure. Shelby stands as proof that sometimes morality must be wagered for the pinnacle of achievement. Criticism of his methods, violence, and manipulation is often voiced, yet it cannot be denied that the outcomes of his actions often benefit not only himself but also the common good. Shelby does not apologize for the success achieved through calculation. His figure is not an endorsement for cruelty, but a symbol of the brutal reality of success and the price that must be paid. He advocates an honest message. Success requires sacrifice, and sometimes it's not as sweet as it appears on the surface. In the University of Life, Thomas Shelby is a stern professor, teaching that the path to the summit is often unmapped and built with one's own hands. His success is the embodiment of heartfelt dedication untouched by the sweetness of apologies. At the end of the day, Shelby teaches us that apologizing for our ambitions is akin to apologizing for breathing, unnecessary and worthless. Real achievement is for those who dare to leap without knowing for certain where they will land. And Thomas Shelby, with the power of a ruler of Birmingham he acknowledges, will always be a symbol of that unapologetic courage. 16. Stay vigilant in every step. The character of Shelby, a post-war British national, is imbued with resilience and vigilance that are not born out of mere arrogance, but rather his steadfast commitment to family and business. In every episode, we are presented with how Thomas executes strategies, anticipates the movements of adversaries and even allies, and risks everything for ambitions he carves with blood, sweat, and tears. The carefully noted moments of momentum show how Thomas's analytical skills and tactical planning never falter, even when he is at the peak of success. This is the first lesson from the drama of Shelby's life. Remain vigilant even in the embrace of victory. So, has Shelby's vigilance sacrificed his humanity? We see how his figure is sometimes trapped in a labyrinth of paranoia and loneliness. Criticisms can be made that this drama sows seeds of dark romance between individualistic survivalism and fragile interpersonal relationships. Is it vulnerable? However, let's analyze deeper. Shelby's vigilance is never devoid of sensitivity to the environment, whether it's social anxiety that surfaces due to betrayal or a genuine sense of urgency to avoid self-destruction and the destruction of his beloved family. Liability and moral ambiguity become two sides of the same coin in his every tactic. Like the central character in a fictional drama, Thomas Shelby also seeps into our reality, outlining that vigilance is the key not only for existence in harsh business competition, but also in maintaining the boundary between power and madness. Allowing us to reflect, are we in a vigilant position like Thomas Shelby, or are we lulled into momentary satisfaction? In the end, the series Peaky Blinders shows the essence of staying vigilant, that is, as an art of survival in the constant chess game of life. Thomas Shelby becomes a symbol of vigilance as a defense mechanism, perhaps even a prologue to the best adaptation and survival of humanity. Taking examples from Thomas Shelby in Peaky Blinders means re-examining our paradigm of vigilance, applied to protect what and for whom. Shelby invites us to not only be spectators but also players who are calculated, sharp, and of course remain vigilant. Thomas Shelby, a name that in the series Peaky Blinders has become a symbol of a complex and profound anti-hero. The character portrayed with intense fervor by Cillian Murphy has created one of the most iconic television characters of the last decade. As the credits roll for this series, we are invited to reflect on the dark journey of the criminal kingpin of Birmingham. Charismatic, intelligent, and unforgiving, Shelby captivates audiences with his piercing gaze that penetrates the soul and dialogue as sharp as a razor hidden in his legendary hat. However, one aspect that makes Shelby so captivating is his vulnerability, the mental state entwined with brutality and a tendency towards destructiveness, which seems to be a dark orchestra in his life's opera. Thomas Shelby is a master strategist, a tactician who plays the chess game of his life by sacrificing pawns, yet always sacrificing a part of himself. Scenario after scenario, from the battlefields of World War I to the world of cunning criminality, he navigates with cunning but also with his ever-mounting burdens. In Peaky Blinders, creator Stephen Knight has carved the figure of Shelby with a complex ethical nuance. Schemes and bloodshed are often compromised by vulnerable emotional impulses such as love for his family, depression over war trauma, and internal struggles with his own identity, a Romani man struggling to overcome prejudice in the working-class England of the early 20th century. Thomas Shelby portrays the role of a family head shrouded in the demands to be an unshakable ruler. He represents the war between dominance and vulnerability, self-control and addiction, love and power. His reflective moments, often shown in the puff of his distinctive cigarette smoke, show that his external magnificence is but a fragile facade. Every era has its underlying crime story with controversial moral lessons. Thomas Shelby takes the baton from characters like Tony Soprano and Walter White, providing character studies to audiences more obsessed with delving into complex psychology than mere acts of rebellion. As the story of Peaky Blinders comes to an end, we are left with questions about the legacy of Thomas Shelby. Was he a general of a faceless army or a man crushed by the burdens he carried? He leaves an indelible mark not only on the cold limestone of Birmingham streets but also in the television canon, proving that we remain captivated by characters who refuse to live in black and white shadows, but celebrate the complexity of grayness that fills every decision of their lives. Thomas Shelby may have passed from our screens, but his resonance will endure, reminding us that every outro is only the beginning of a legend that will continue to be told. From his wandering cigarette smoke to the silence that speaks louder than grenade blasts, He weaves the history of an indelible man, a ballad of Shelby that will never end. Goodbye, thank you.